Yeah, good morning. Good morning. I'm looking forward to meet with the EU defense ministers, and I'm looking forward to discuss with them how we are responding to a more demanding and challenging security environment. And recently we have seen some very important steps in the right direction. A few days ago, the United States announced plans to substantially increase their military presence in Europe by increasing 4 times the amount they spend on military presence in Europe, so they can fund more troops in the eastern part of the alliance, so they can finance the pre-positioning of heavy equipment, tanks, armored vehicles and other kinds of heavy equipment, and also more exercises and more investments in infrastructure. So this increased US presence in Europe is an important sign and a part of the adaptation of the alliance to a more demanding security environment. Another positive sign is what we see regarding defense spending in Europe. After many years of substantial cuts in defense spending, last year the cuts in defense spending in Europe practically stopped. That's of course only the first step, but it is a step in the right direction. The picture is still mixed, but we are moving now in the right direction. And then of course we also see increased interest for cooperation between the European Union and NATO. I welcome that, and I will discuss with the ministers how we can work more closely on challenges like hybrid threats, like working together to stabilize our neighborhood in the south, and also on other issues which are of great importance for both the European Union and NATO. Let me also finally add a few words about Syria. NATO strongly supports all efforts to find a negotiated, peaceful political solution to the conflict in Syria. What you have seen is that the intense Russian airstrikes, mainly targeting opposition groups in Syria, is undermining the efforts to find a political solution to the conflict. Moreover, the increased Russian presence, air activity in Syria is also causing increased tensions and violations of Turkish airspace. This creates risks, heightened tensions, and it's of course a challenge for NATO because it's violations of NATO airspace. And then the substantial Russian military buildup in Syria and the eastern Mediterranean is also shifting the strategic balance in this part of the Mediterranean. So I call on calm, de-escalation and a political solution to the conflict in Syria.
Russia is accusing Turkey to prepare an action, a military action in Syria. What is NATO's response to that?
I think we have to look at the facts, and the facts are that Russia has, during the last months, implemented a heavy, substantial military build-up in Syria with air forces, ground forces, and increased naval presence in the eastern part of the Mediterranean. They are conducting many airstrikes, intense airstrikes, mainly directed against opposition groups, and they are violating, we have seen several violations of NATO airspace, of Turkish airspace. So this is something which is now undermining the efforts to find a political solution to the conflict in Syria.
General, about reports overnight that Islamic State is now moving into Libya in more substantial numbers, and what can NATO do to help the situation?
We are following very closely the developments also in Libya, and this just underlines the importance of fully support the efforts to try to find a political solution, to reach a ceasefire and to have an agreement on a unity government in Libya. because that will be an important first step also to be able to fight ISIL. NATO stands ready to support a new unity government in Libya, to help them with build defense institutions, to help them in different ways. But that requires a request from a new unity government in Libya, and of course a new situation on the ground in Libya to enable such support from NATO.
Thank you very much, colleagues. That's all we have time for. I'm afraid we really need to